Try to dig harbor.
He came with his own, and we don't we have Representative Jim Walsh here from the 19th. Forgive me, I'm 48. So you can go ahead and take it away. I don't want to waste your time.
Well, Jesse uncovered a lot of the details of what happened today. Normally, on the opening day of the legislative session, the vote on temporary rules is a milk run. It's an administrative thing that is not a big deal. But this year, it's a big deal because this year, the temporary rules, which in a few days lead to permanent rules for the session, were all about the Zoom session. And what we are concerned about, and I don't want to get into the weeds of the technicality of the rules. What the big picture issue is do the people of Washington have sufficient access to the legislative process to satisfy the traditional definition of representative democracy? And I'm concerned, as Jesse is, as all of our colleagues on our side of the aisle were, that this set of rules doesn't protect you. It protects us, but it doesn't give you access to the process. And access isn't just to the debates on the floor and the votes. It's to committee hearings, it's to all the mechanics, the nuts and bolts of passing legislation and taxes and budgets in this state. So under the guise of protecting us, we're cutting you out of the process. Now, will you be able to log on to a Zoom hearing? Yes, you will. But it will be up to the discretion of the people running the Zoom meeting whether you get to speak for or against a bill or a budget or a tax. And to me, that's not sufficient. Remember last year, right here, when there was a bill in the state Senate that would have basically run hairdressers out of business. It would have required them not to be able to work freelance at all, which most hairdressers work. Hairdressers showed up to the campus here from all over the state to say no to this bad bill that would have put them out of business. That was democracy in action. That was a beautiful thing. And that can't happen right now with this Zoom session setup. And I want hairdressers and contractors and restaurant owners and everyone from the state to be able to come here and say, stop hurting us. Stop putting us out of work. Stop closing down our businesses. Stop. And what this Zoom session does is it cuts you guys out of that process. So we will all know today, and we will continue to fight as these temporary rules become permanent rules for the session, to try to make it so that most of the activity is happening here, and that there are reasonable safeguards for the health of people who are sick or at a high-risk group, and make sure that they can Zoom in and participate. But the rest of us should be able to come here. That's what we're about, and that's what today's message is about. So when you talk to your neighbors, when you talk to your family and friends, tell them that we want to consider the health and well-being of everyone. But representative democracy requires public access to the process, and that's what's in danger right now.
So are they talking about the entire session being under these rules, or is there a sunset to it?
No sunset. As it stands, the entire session will be under these rules. Now, they are subject to modification. You can change the rules along the way, and that's, of course, what we hope will happen.
So I got a question. So Zoom session, you're saying that the Democrats are using Zoom to talk to you guys in there. If that's true, then why is the National Guard even here? If they're using Zoom, they're not even inside the building.
Well, they were afraid of what happened in D.C. earlier, and there's some confusion about what happened in D.C. and what happened here. But it's people are nervous.
So, Jim, I'm kind of a plan for the worst, hope for the best type person. Okay, so if they get everything they want here, what can we, the people, do to participate in the process going forward?
Well, you can log on, you can watch TDW, but more importantly, I ask all of you and everyone you talk to, contact every legislator in Olympia. Go to the ledge.wa.gov website, which has the list of all of the members of the House and the State Senate. Call them all, email them all, and say that you're concerned about the public's access to the legislative process, the budget process, the tax process. You want to be able to hear and see, but more importantly, participate in those hearings.
But isn't it already a constitutional law that gives them equal access to the legislature?
The argument is that by logging on, you have access. I simply feel that logging on and joining a Zoom meeting is not sufficient. But their argument will be that that's enough and that satisfies these requirements. I don't agree.
Still an emergency, though. We got to get back to the crux of the issue as well. He's using the emergency for everything.
That's correct. Well, we're at this point now where the legislature can debate the proclamations the governor makes. And that will be a matter just like any law. And again, constitutional people that on the constitutionality of these actions are in the minority now. But we are a vocal minority, we are a strong minority, and we will fight like heck to negotiate and vote on the governor's actions. His ability to operate as a one-man project is over now because we are in session again. They call it a unitary executive. It's a theory of channeling all authority to the executive.
Sounds like a king to me.
It does, a little too much. That's over, because now we're in session, and the law around his emergency powers gives him all that discretion when we're not in session. Now we're in session, whether it's Zoom or not. Say again? No, they still exist, but now they're subject to review by the legislature, as they should be always.
When will they do that?
As soon as possible. We don't have a date.
So, do you have any good news for us?
Well, the good news is legislature is back in session, and we have the opportunity, we have the chance to restore the proper separation of powers in our government. So it's not a lock, it's not a guarantee, but it's the chance for the legislature to assert itself again as a co-equal branch to the executive. And we don't have to let the executive be operating out on its own as we have for the past 9 months.
So, where can we go to follow your work? And could you give us what are your top 3 goals for this legislative session?
Well, I have a bill, HB 1029, that is the legislative version of Initiative 1114. It reforms the law around the governor's extraordinary powers in an emergency and limits them in time to 14 days. So HB 1029 is critical. Beyond that, I think we're looking at issues that are bigger than any bill. What we're looking for is to say no to tax increases, whatever form they take, on the people of Washington. That's going to be a number of different bills, so far coming out of the state Senate more, but there'll be some in the state House too. We're going to say no to tax increases, and we're going to say yes as much as we can to bills that give regulatory relief and permitting relief to small businesses and individuals around the state. So we want to get to that place where restaurants can reopen, where small mom and pop stores are on at least a somewhat equal footing with corporate giants. We want to give small businesses a break from the business and occupation tax, the B&O tax, not forever, but for 6 months or a year, a holiday, so that they can get back on their feet and get back up and running again. When I talk to small business owners around the state, they all agree that B&O tax is the biggest financial hit they take. Although the unemployment insurance tax, which is rocketing up higher, may be taking that place. So we need to get a control on that unemployment insurance tax and we need to get some kind of holiday or break on that B&O tax. So those are the big ones, Michelle. It's more than any one bill. It's a strategic approach to helping people and small businesses get back on their feet after this COVID.
So where can we go to follow you? Are you still gonna be doing those weekly vlogs or whatever?
Oh yeah, no, I'm still on social media as long as they haven't blocked everybody. I'm still on Facebook. I'm still on MeWe for
Do
people
you
who
have
don't
a
Facebook.
website?
Website too, all over the place. The best one is representativejimwalsh.com, and that's the official site where you can go and see what's up.
Is there anything being done about the impending foreclosures coming down the pipe?
Oh gosh, yes.
Because people aren't paying their rent?
Right. What we need to do is make sure that there are existing programs to assist landlords and property owners who've been negatively affected by the eviction moratorium and even the utilities non-payment moratorium. There are mechanisms in place, programs in place already to give people aid for that. They're just not funded. So we've got to make sure that we put some money into the programs.
Are they going to, we talked about the Washington Foreclosure Fairness
Correct.
Act mediation, are they going to open that up to
That-
non-owner occupied, that is rental properties?
That looks like it has bipartisan support, so I think that will at least get a hearing. And for those of you who don't follow this stuff closely, this is a reform of some of the foreclosure and other processes, administrative processes for non-owner occupied buildings. Right now, if you live in the house you own, you have some assistance from the legal process in the state. If you have a rental unit, you don't. So we want to get the rental units covered the same way that owner occupied are. And this helps everybody. This helps the renter and it helps the property owner. So it takes some of the financial pressure off of people in trouble there.
So you say
Sir, I
you
got a
think it's
question for
excuse me
you
just a
too.
second.
You've already asked those 20 questions. Let's have one more.
She's the host.
You mentioned that we're probably gonna get a hearing on that. What can we do to muscle that through the process?
I'm not sure which committee it's going to, probably the Housing Committee in the House, State House. So contact everyone who's a member of that committee.
Okay.
And tell the members of the Housing Committee that you want the bill on non-owner occupied arbitration to get a hearing.
Okay.
And I'll post the bill number and other things on the website, but people get caught up in bill numbers. Remember the concept of the bill, which is to give non-owner occupied structures and buildings a fair shake with owner occupied.
Okay.
All right, guys.
Last question. So how long do you think it'll be until the lockdowns are over? And the Democrats ever say when they thought about ending the lockdowns or when they will end the lockdowns?
Well, we don't know. The governor's latest extension of his lockdown goes through today. He's extending it a little farther while he puts his new multi-phase scheme in place. The multi-phase scheme is really an excuse to extend the lockdowns. So for the time being, for the foreseeable future, he's going to continue to try to continue these. There's some talk at the end of March, but we've been hearing this for almost a year now. It's just around the corner, it's just around the corner, it's just around the corner. What we're going to do over in that building, and a lot on Zoom, is put pressure on the governor to actually end the lockdowns. And that's just going to be a political tug of war.
Or what is that?
Bipartisan?
It starts tomorrow.
That bipartisan?
I don't know.
So are you done today in here?
We're finished for the day,
You're
yes.
finished. Where was everybody? I mean, why aren't some Democrats reps up here talking to us?
Because they don't like talking to people at this point in time. I don't know. I can't answer that. I mean, I've seen a few drive by just while we've been talking. I can't answer that. You'd have to ask them. But we are finished for the day, and tomorrow committee hearings and the wheels of legislation begin in earnest. And that's typical. The opening day of session is usually more ceremonial. The Speaker of the House and the head of the Senate is officially voted in, and as we say, the rules, which are usually not controversial, are voted in. But this year with the Zoom stuff, the rules are controversial. The key point, again, to all of this is public access to the process. And just watching it on TV is not enough. You have to have a reasonable belief that your voice will be heard, particularly in a committee hearing, which is supposed to be the place where the citizens can be heard. And I'm deeply concerned that you won't get that with these rules. Well, we don't know yet. There's been no damage yet, so we'd have to see. Something would have to happen first, and then someone could, if you were excluded from being able to speak at a committee hearing, then you might have a complaint.
You're talking about the House Bill 1029, and I know that was introduced today, it wasn't officially read.
Correct, and that's
When do
the
you think
description
that'll
of
be?
the statement.
You don't know.
We gotta bang our pots and pans and contact our representatives and demand a hearing.
So that we can keep like reaching out to.
Oh, yeah.
Going that way, 'cause I
Remember
saw that you're one of the-
1029.
I know you're one of the sponsors.
Right.
Do you think there'll be bipartisan support on that or no?
There's not so far, but hope springs eternal.
Okay, well, thank you.
Sure.
The RCW states that if the governor extends the orders that the legislature majority and the House majority or minority have to approve of the extension before it is valid, who is going to approve of those extensions now? You guys are open, so who is going to approve of those, and how is that going to be transferred from the House Senate majority and House minority to the legislature? Is that going to be changed, or is it still the same right now?
No, the law says that the four corner signatures are when legislature is not in session.
Right, now it is. So who is signing for that and who is agreeing to that? Is all the legislature people have to agree?
The second of what you said, it's subject to a vote of the entire legislature.
So if he makes it today, this extension, since you guys are in session, he has to have a vote of you guys before it takes.
No, that's not exactly right. Certain of his proclamations, he claims, are not subject to legislative approval on extension.
What is that?
It gets into the weeds on the law, but it includes Proclamation 20.25, which is the thing that's being extended on the lockdown. In theory, yeah. But it's not complete. It's only got 2 of the 4 phases.
So what's your position on the education system right now and what's going on? What's your position on that?
Well, in our K-12 schools, we got to get our schools back up and the kids back in the classroom.
No mask in the classroom. My goodness, no mask in the classroom for the kids. My goodness, it's the one back in person, no mask.
I hear you. I want to leave that decision to each school district. I don't think we should be making that decision here. Or parents. Well, and that, but it's at the school board level that you as parents have the best voice. If we make decisions over here statewide about what schools have to do, you have less of a voice. Your best voice is talking to your local school district. So the decision, well, don't let it be like that. Don't let it be like that. Attend your school board meetings. But I think that the decision on that has to be locally made. I don't think we should be making that decision here. I don't think we want that.
What's your position on the vaccine? And do you see any bills coming down that will require the vaccine in our state?
Rumors only so far. It would be wildly unconstitutional to require a vaccine. But they may try to sequence this somehow. We'll be watching for that. Obviously, I mean, I'm for choice in this matter. If you want the vaccine, you should be able to get it. If you don't want it, you should not be barred from a job or anything else for not having it. To some degree, though, we have to let individual companies and businesses and people make those decisions. I just don't want to see any dictates from here on the people. You know, we should stay neutral here on this. Let individuals and individual businesses make up their policies.
Was the governor here today, or is he on Zoom today?
I didn't see him.
Okay, and I wanted to get to that question because he had the 30 days in the beginning of his emergency powers, and then we have to continue that emergency power, which is the first one that you said that the governor said that he did not, that does not apply.
All right, you're kind of mixing things up here. The declaration of emergency has no timeline. Proclamations made in the wake of a declaration of emergency, some have time limits of 30 days, some do not. The underlying declaration of emergency by law has no time limit.
30 days.
No, it has no time limit. The RCW applies to we don't want to get into it. The RCW applies to proclamations made under a declaration of emergency. The declaration itself does not have a time limit. And then the controversial point is, Some argue all proclamations should have the 30-day limit. Others argue only some do. And the only some argument has been winning lately.
It says that, the headquarters is at Camp Murray. Does that mean we're under martial law?
No, we're not under martial law. All right, well, listen, everybody, stay engaged. Contact your legislators.
Sir, was there talk inside of there about martial law?
No.
We heard from one representative that there was.
Why do we keep hearing about the insurrection act? That's why that.
These are federal issues,
Martial law, yeah.
these are federal issues, not state issues.
Federal martial law.
We would not handle anything like that here. This is a state.
So there was no talk inside of the agreement out there about martial law?
No.
Okay. We were told that by a member of Congress.
There's a lot of rumors right now.
Thanks. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for being out here on a rainy day. Stay engaged.
All right. Hey, Dana.
Okay.
Oh, let me get a good shot here.
I get a couple. Well, sorry it took so long.
I wish we had a bigger crowd.
The state senate's running them already. They have run the magazine ban. You know, we killed it before. We'll kill it again. I'm not. I think there's going to be. Huh? No, we killed it here last year. You know, it's the same bill basically. I think there's going to be so much jam up over the budgets and the money issues.
Well, they don't even have the background system right now.
I'm not sure that they're going to get to it. I mean, you know what it is? They run those bills as statements. They run those bills to appeal to the political base. They don't make a priority.
There's not a lot of gun community folks that believe it.
It probably is not. I mean, if it looks like it is, I will send up a flare. And,
Okay. Do you think there's going to be very many of the moderates kind of coming over to the common sense side?
I'm hopeful. Today's vote on the rules, even though it's kind of a technicality type vote, not a huge policy vote, I mean, it went party line. So that's a hopeful sign that the moderates, you know, on our side will stand for constitutional concerns. The key is how many of the ones from the other side of the aisle can we get to come over. And today it was a party line vote. But we will be working all the time on trying to get bipartisan support for common sense, protecting your rights. So we can't give up. We can't do it ourselves. We have to find people of goodwill from unexpected places. And I'm always hopeful we can find one or two. All right. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks for being here.
Have a good day, sir.